sighted it in India at Dehra Dun, which is in the northern foothills of the beautiful Himalayas. Raphael, we called it, after the Archangel guardian of the sick and of travellers, for we intended it as a home for all sorts of sick people, beginning with mentally retarded children and leprosy patients. Lepers, there are 3 million in India. Many of them live in little colonies like this one. They live together for mutual protection. They're all ages, many of them families, some single. But the one thing that impresses me the most of all about them is the real desire they have to be self-supporting, to try and do something constructive in spite of their disabilities. And it's a great inspiration when one sees it, and it does make one want to try and do something to help them. But of course, unfortunately, they can't really be self-supporting, and they depend upon what's given them, primarily by the government of India, but helped by voluntary organizations, helped by rice and milk powder that comes from America, all sorts of gifts, which of course they have to supplement by begging. But the mentally defective children can't beg. They can't do anything for themselves. And this is one whom we found on the streets, belonging to nobody, just depending upon what anybody might give them or not give them. Some of them, of course, live in their own homes, but you can imagine what it's like having a completely mentally defective child in your house. They're got to be fed, they're violent. If the mother wants to go out, she's got to tie the child down, she's got to do something to keep it from running away or hurting itself. And many Indian families would live the entire family in one room, so one can imagine what it's like. What a strain it must be on the whole family, trying to look after it. When we began, we had a site, or anyway the hope of one, an office, on which we were able to put our first sign, Raphael, and a secretary, Mrs. Dar, Ava Dar. Her family had grown up, and so she gave up her home and came to us full-time, without any salary, and took charge of the whole venture for us. The site was just jungle when eventually we got it. There were no facilities at all, not even water. Every drop of water had to be laboriously carried. We began with the means available to us, actually with the lepers themselves. We got them to start the work of clearing. It was rather slow, perhaps, but it fulfilled a double function because it gave them, I think, a sense of purpose. It made them feel that they had something useful to do, and that they were actually playing a part in building their own home. One of the points about leprosy is that the patient loses all sense of sensation in his hands and his feet, and that means that he can hurt himself or burn himself without knowing it. So he needs to be protected, and if protected, there's quite a lot that he can do. Well, when we'd cleared, we started building, slowly to begin with, but we had a lot of plans for the future, and bit by bit we grew. My wife was particularly interested in a home for the children of lepers, to give them a new life and take them away from the danger of infection. And that was what she was particularly anxious to build up. But we did have the leprosy colony and the mentally defective children, and her little home had to come last after these. This is lime going up on a bullock cart, the chief means of transport in India. The river bed, when it was dry, provided us with sand and gravel, and all we had to pay for was the hire of the ponies to get them up. They're lovely ponies, and they used to go up day after day carrying material for the leprosy colony, which gradually began to take shape, until finally the day came when the first patient was able to move in to the first permanent building. They brought with them all their possessions, such as they were, even their dogs and their chickens, everything they had. They were given one room and a veranda to each family, and the veranda provided their workroom, their kitchen, their dining room, their living room. This is Madan. He was a cobbler by trade, and now he makes all the shoes for the colony. It's a particularly happy and a particularly sweet little family, the two of them together. As a means of communication between the lepers and us, we formed a patients' committee, a panchayat they call it there, but anyway it means a committee. And here they are talking to Auntie Dot, as we call her, our honorary welfare officer. They have plenty to say, and whenever they say it forcefully and with a lot of meaning. But one of the chief problems is their children. The children are not born with leprosy, but they're in danger of catching it. And of course the families don't want to let them go. And so to begin with, until a separate home and school could be built for them, we had to do what we could to protect them and bring them up and educate them. And one of the lepers undertook the job of running a school for them, and each day he held his little class. He's taken a plank and spread sand over it, and the children write in the sand with a little stick. That's their equivalent of our exercise book or slate. They really seem to enjoy their school, and they never had it before. He's doing his sums. I think he's having a little bit of difficulty with them, like most of us. But there's no doubt that school did mean something to them. And one sometimes finds them doing a bit of work out of school, like Cheta is here, the daughter of the head leper. And not far away, separated by a little fence, is a home for the mentally defective children. 50 of them, and I think only 3 of them can speak, let alone do anything intelligent. And this is a typical day in their lives, beginning with the morning wash. Looking after them is a most dedicated work, requiring great, not only patience, but real affection for the children. We started with 2 nurses who came from England. They lived in tents, and they got the home going. But gradually they trained Indian staff, an Indian matron, Indian orderlies, who've now taken it over entirely. They all live on the spot within a few yards of the home, so that it does give a feeling of a family. And although they'd never done it before, they've learnt how to do it, and do it most faithfully and most patiently. We ourselves aren't able to visit very often because we have to travel, but we bought an ambulance in Singapore for £100 and drove it up from Calcutta and use it as our means of transport whenever we're able to get out there. course, visitors to the home, always quite an occasion. Even the little children themselves and the staff and helpers always seem very excited and pleased when somebody comes to see them. And they have their own little way of welcoming you and saying how pleased they are to see you. The main part of the children's home is a school. This is a remarkable achievement done entirely by an Australian girl, Pamela Breslin, who gave us 2 years of her time and came out at her own expense and built it up. She was a fully qualified teacher in the handicapped children, but when she saw the children she had to take on, that first night she very nearly packed her bags and went home. But she stuck to it, and although they couldn't understand what she had to tell them, somehow she does seem to have brought into their lives an order and a sense of purpose. I don't know that the children know quite what they're doing, but they do know that school is something important in the day. In fact, they really come to love school. And if ever they're deprived of going to school, they're very upset. Here one of them is being taught to identify colours with beads and a coloured piece of felt. He never can succeed. His mind is not sufficiently developed to do it, but they keep on trying, and they do seem to love it. This is the midday lunch. We have 130 mouths to feed at Raphael. It costs us 7 and 6 per week per mouth. Even lunch itself is part of the treatment for the children, because when they came they were completely wild. They didn't know how to feed themselves. Very few of them had had any regularity, any sense of security in their lives, and so even their lunchtime is a means of giving them that sense of security and tranquility that they need. And as the months go by and you see the children settle in, you begin to see the effect that just that simple care and affection and treatment has on them. That's Dolly, the favourite of the family, the youngest of the family. She looks all right, but even she can't speak, and I'm afraid never will. Gracie, when she first came, couldn't feed herself, but now she's got to the point of feeding the others. It just shows what a little bit of order and care can do. Paimon, who's responsible for the washing up, was the first girl who came to us. She was thin and emaciated. She couldn't stand up. She squatted on her haunches. She was wild. She screamed. She had to be tied down. I think she's saying something to herself there. And even when tied down, she used to escape. But gradually we've watched her settle down until now she's really become a film star, because she knew she was being filmed. She was obviously loving it. She didn't look once at the camera and played her part perfectly. Every day she likes to get as many mugs as she can, balanced one on top of the other. And after lunch, as the shadows begin to lengthen, they're left to their own devices to have their little quiet time. a little tranquil time. Budlu, who came to us when we didn't know who he was or where he came from, has a very generous nature. Whenever he gets the chance, if he's given anything, he shares it with whoever's by him. In this case, little Shanti. It's a little Jewish girl from Calcutta. They've come from all parts of India. And like all children, they like their games. The Jewish girl. Little Shanti looks as if she lost the whole world when she lost that ball. Budlu. But Shanti's got it now. And then last thing at night, they've been taught to say their prayers. I don't suppose they know what it is they're saying, but I'm sure that their prayers are heard, both on their own account and on those who've been good enough to give something to enable them to live and have their home. And so ahead of us, there lies a lot to be done. We have a hospital to build, a home for cancer patients we want to build. We have long waiting lists of people who've written asking us to take them in. And we have the site beneath those beautiful Himalayas waiting to be developed.